Big time UFC debut between a couple of guys whose combined age is 64. You know I love that. Coming up at middleweight, it's fire with fire. We have the Black Wolf, Aliaskhab Khizriev, taking on Denis Tiuliulin. And he has a very, very interesting career, does Tiuliulin. You go over it, he's been training at Extreme Couture. You look at the pics over on the Instagrams, and there are some big names. Looks like he's befriended the bad boy of the division, Sean Strickland, so there is that. But overall, when I look at this fight, I mean, Aliaskhab Khizriev was supposed to debut 1, 2, 3, 4 times last year. Like, I look at the names too, and it's really kind of crazy when you do consider it, because we had done a video about his fight against Daukaus, and we will throw it back to that one to give you a bit of a better idea of who Aliaskhab Khizriev is. But when you do look at the names, Daukaus, Wellington Turman, Alessio Di Chirico, and this weekend he was supposed to be taking on Abzupian Magomedov. Tiuliulin will be replacing him on what seems like a few weeks' notice. So interesting that way. But overall, when I look at this one, let's throw it on back, first of all, to that fight that Khizriev was supposed to have against Daukaus. It would have been, again, you talk fire with fire in the grappling sense of things. Then we'll update it with this fight that we have coming up this weekend. Aliaskhab Khizriev, a guy that's been on a lot of people's radars for really the longest time. I mean, he beat Paul Harris, you know, who's smart Paul Harris, back in 2018. You want to see a good fight. You want to see a guy get killed. Husamar Palhares goes over there to Russia, thinks, hey, I'm juicy AF. I'm going to beat this guy. Gets hit clean, gets dropped. Now, did he pull guard? Maybe he did, but he got finished. And listen, could Aliaskhab Khizriev go out there and have a career like Emil Mech? Maybe he does. However, when I watch this guy fight, it gets me up in the morning, if I'm telling you, and if I'm being totally honest. Like, this is the type of Sunday morning stuff that I get up about. And for Aliaskhab Khizriev, you look at it. He'll throw a high kick with his lead leg. He'll throw a high kick with his back leg. Really long-rangey southpaw. He throws kicks to the body. He works very fast. There's so many fights that you can go back and watch. The Mate Truhan fight is the one that I like for Fight Night's Global 62, where he throws a kick. You see Truhan just kind of drop his hand down, and then Khizriev goes, I don't care about your hand that's down. I'm going to throw a punch there, drops him, and then soccer kicks him for good effect. After that, beats Yasube Inamoto by decision. I like that, the 3-round experience. Beats Husamar Palhares, then takes over 2 years off. He takes 2.5 years off. He fights Enrique Shigemoto over on Contender Series, and it's just more of the same. The guy just goes absolutely total explosiveness. It worries me against a lot of fighters. It worries me in this fight against Daukaus. But the guy is super explosive, super athletic.
I do think Khizriev is the faster of the two, and if he is very dedicated to his kicking game and staying on the outside, you mentioned the body kicks, if he's just dedicated to the leg kick from the outside, take away some of that range and some of the footwork of Daukaus and force him to become a striker, because we all know how good the grappling of Daukaus is. It's not like he's a poor striker by any means, but if this fight is completely contested on the feet, I like Khizriev quite a bit.
Khizriev, wow. Like, again, you want to go back and have a fun trip through the highlight reels. Not highlight reels. You watch the full fights, but they're only, 2.5 minutes, 30 seconds. It pretty much is a highlight reel. It's a lot of fun. 5 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, 5 by decision for Khizriev. So with Khizriev, he's probably one of the more fun fighters that I've seen kind of making that debut into the UFC. Obviously, we talked about Rinat Fardinov, who's supposed to make his UFC debut, and these guys train together at American Top Team, so that's really interesting. But when it comes to Tiuliulin, when I did my research, you watch him fight, and you go from, him fighting guys that are debuting to him fighting guys that actually have a record, and he fights the same damn way. And I'll let you take over.
I'm really glad that you said that, because I know later on, and anybody who watches this channel knows, I love Matt the Immortal Brown. I do. Matt Brown at this stage of his career is a 50-50 fighter, to where if he lands that big shot, he's going to win, because he still hits really hard. But when you're known for getting into crazy fights, and now you're 40, your level of durability is going to get chipped away at over time. So now, if you land on Brown, he will also go down. You get the idea. He lands first, he wins. He gets hit first, he loses. Tiuliulin, I think, is going to fall into that category, and it's concerning because he's making his UFC debut right now. He's going to fall into that 50-50 category, because he is an absurdly aggressive striker, to the point point where every time he does go in and throw his flurries, I know you're going to get to more of that in a little bit, he does leave himself very open. Now, do you like the aggression? Is the punching power good? Yes, but here's my issue with his overall striking game. There's not a lot of variety to it. With someone like Zabit Magomedsharipov, we talk about how, he probably does a little bit too much, right? He could slow it down a little bit, maybe do some more traditional combos, and his cardio would look better later on in fights. Tiuliulin goes out there, throws combos, a lot of 1-2s, but he either spams a ton of hooks or throws a bunch of 1-2s up the middle. He's not somebody who will switch his combinations, kind of mid-combinations, switch his footwork, and I know these are things that we normally talk about when we talk about people up in the rankings, but still, you're making your UFC debut against Khizriev, who we talked about before is somebody who we could honestly see beating Kyle Daukaus in his UFC debut. That's how good of a fighter this is, and I'm really glad that you brought up the three opponents that he was matched up with going into this one, because those were three pretty good fighters. I would say Alessio Di Chirico, although he's not the best guy in the world, is still sort of an above average UFC debut level guy. And same thing with Daukaus. So that really tells you how much stock the matchmakers put into Khizriev as a prospect, because he can grapple, he can strike. Is he a little undersized for the division? Yes, and that does worry me when he does start to fight, more experienced guys or at least bigger guys in the division. But for right now against Tiuliulin on short notice, this is a very, very good fight for Khizriev.
So I look at this one and, all right, for Denis Tiuliulin, he hasn't been knocked out since 2013. So that's pretty cool. You do like to see that. You like to go into the weeds a little bit. We don't, but you can. So out of his 10 wins, combined opponent record is 25-29. 5 of those 10 fighters were winless. So there is that. And then you look at his 5 losses. The opponent's record, 27-4. So anybody good that he's fought, he's lost to, and anybody that's not very good, he's been able to beat. Now, his last win was about a year ago over Gisleno Fahea, who was 11-2, so that does add to that. But again, if you take 11-2 off of that, it's 14-27, so it's not that great. And for Tiuliulin, this fight was announced on March 9th, so he does get a few weeks to get ready for it. I said he's training over at Extreme Couture. Gabriel Checo, who lost to Rashad Evans recently in that camp. But you will get some of the grappling out of him. That's why I mention it. Chris Curtis. You also have Duraev, who I love. And then you also have Sadabusi, who's going to give you that really long kickboxing range at 185 or thereabouts. But again, I look at this one. If you even consider Fahea, he was 35 years old in that fight at 11-2. So I do discount it a little bit. His walkout is also Can't Stop. That's TJ Dillashaw's walkout. Don't ever take it. You're getting me overly excited, and I don't love it. The other thing, I look at Denis Tiuliulin, it's almost like watching a kid playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots and just mashing on it. Or you've got some baseball fan from Southie at a Red Sox game, come on, pitcher. Hey, batter. Strike him the f*** out. Just yelling in his ear. Because for Tiuliulin, he'll go 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, back out, and then throw, one leg kick. And then wait there, and then throw a hook, and then 1-2, 1-2. It really is a game plan that I see him struggling with against not even ranked fighters in the UFC.
He's 10-5, and he's 34, making his UFC debut on short notice.
2 months away from 34.
Against somebody who we genuinely believe is an exciting prospect of this division. Now, again, I keep on going back to Khizriev's ceiling more than anything with this fight, because I do expect him to win this matchup, if I'm being completely honest. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I think he's the more dynamic fighter on the feet, especially. And if he is able to take it to the mat, which I do think he will at some point, he has shown a very high level of activity, even on the ground. He's not somebody who's just going to stall out. He will pass your guard. He will try to go for a lot of submissions, too. I just want to know how much his size is going to affect him. And the thing about Tiuliulin is that he's not a small guy by any means, so if he can wear on Aliaskhab, especially early on, let's say he can clinch up early, maybe not make this fight, a fight of the night contender, but just wear on him, use your physicality. I think it'll be interesting to see how that does play out as this fight goes on. But if we're just breaking down who's the more skilled fighter, I don't think anybody would say Tiuliulin's the more skilled fighter than Khizriev, and that's why I've got to pick Aliaskhab.
You look at the odds in this one. Khizriev open a -300 favorite. He's a -433 or thereabouts on best fight odds. For Tiuliulin, open a +240. He's now a +330 or thereabouts. And for his name, I watched M1, I watched Brave. Everybody said Tiuliulin. It looks very, very daunting for an English speaker, but listen, that's what they said on those broadcasts. That's what I've gone with. And if we look at the Topology votes, I don't anticipate they're going to be close at all, Matt.
Let me set them. I'm going to say 83%
over. I was going to say 90. Yeah,
wow,
look at that.
Okay.
Not close. 847 total votes, 96% Khizriev, 57% by submission, 20% by knockout. For the 4% that have Tiuliulin, 52% by knockout. I think that's the only way he's going to win. Like, again, he is the taller fighter. Reach is somewhat close. Khizriev's one of those guys, like, it's like Alexander Romanov with, like, the sumo and the sambo, and then you pair that with the striking of, like, I don't know, a Wildcat. If a Wildcat, like, I know it's a high school mascot nickname in every town over, but when I look at the way that Khizriev strikes, like, it's wild, it's unorthodox, it's kind of crazy. It leaves him susceptible to where he could get hit by Tiuliulin, who has good power. I should say that too. He does actually have very good power, but he's way too wild. And the other thing is, he's a kickboxer who holds his hands way up here. And when you're a kickboxer to hold your hands way up here, you either get taken down, or if you decide I'm going to hold them down and I'm going to try and defend the takedowns, you're leaving yourself to getting hit. So I don't like Tiuliulin in this fight at all. I'm never very strong this way or the other way about some of these fights, but I have the Black Wolf here big time.
Yeah, no, he's by far the more skilled fighter. Again, size of the future, I do think is going to be an issue for him, because Khizriev's the type of guy who could probably win 6 fights in a row, look really good, then get knocked out by Uriah Hall in the 3rd round of a fight. Like, that's the type of career he could have. Uriah Hall could do that to anybody, to be fair, but I do think he'll be able to win this one.
If Tiuliulin wins, I'll do a hot sauce shoey out of one of the Air Jordans behind me. It is a fight that's going to happen this weekend. I'm going to watch it, though, with Pop and Popcorn. Khizriev, big-time favorite in this matchup. Let us know who you have. Down below in the comments section, maybe you're a buddy of Denis Tiuliulin. We've offended you. We have a big-time card coming up. You have Curtis Blaydes taking on Daukaus in the main event. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.